Remarkable people overcoming remarkable challenges with resilience, dedication, community, and grit. Listen as they share their stories of overcoming adversity. Open your eyes to what is genuinely possible for all of us. Authentic Adversity with host Chris Howe.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the Authentic Adversity podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with a good friend of mine. He's a firefighter with the city of Kingston, Ontario. He's not only a firefighter, but he's the first above-knee amputee active duty firefighter in Canada. He's a motivator, a public speaker, and honestly, just a true survivor. I mean, you just embody everything that is adversity and overcoming that. So I wanna welcome Mike Laughlin.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. It's awesome.
Yeah, man, it's great. I mean, I've been doing a couple of these podcasts that I've just interviewed people that I didn't actually have a in-person relationship with. So I've had the pleasure of getting to know you. And I mean, I know you through my wife, but we've built a relationship well past that. And since the first time I met you, you've just captured my attention and inspired me on so many levels. And I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your story. It's just it's awe-inspiring, actually.
It's been a crazy 15 years, let's say, and to be coming out on the other side where I am now, I would never have thought I would have made it here. So
well, it is truly remarkable. I mean, what you've overcome and how you've pushed beyond that and used positivity, mindset, resilience. And, I applaud you for everything you do in your life. And I'm always so proud of, just to see you doing you and being you. You're an amazing person all around, man. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, man. Of course. So I generally like to get into kind of early life and paint a little picture for the audience of what Mike was like as a kid. You grew up in Joyceville, Ontario, which I only knew about because a lot of my friends ended up in the prison there.
Yeah. A lot of people know us just because of the prison, but it's a farm community. It's a country community. Grew up on a farm. So I was doing chores as a kid, getting up in the morning, doing chores before school.
Right.
So grew up tough and with discipline and great parents. I have a brother and a sister, an older sister, a younger brother.
Cool.
And then from there I went into sports, and so I was your typical jock. I played every sport, every contact sport.
Yeah.
So football, rugby, and hockey was huge in my life.
Right.
And I played fastball too. So, played the highest level of every sport. Was always the team captain and one of the better players.
Yeah.
If not the best player on the team a lot of the time. So a lot of learning leadership and leading by example and stuff like that at a young age, which is what molded me probably a lot, this to this day.
For sure. That's who you are today.
Yeah. And obviously carried over to firefighting too. So I played junior A hockey. I was a captain of the Kingston Voyageurs, a local tier 2 team. Was drafted by the Kingston Frontenacs in OHL and won a national championship in fastball. Won 4 rugby championships, 2 football championships. So lots of winning, lots of and losing too. You got to lose to win, right?
Sure, definitely.
But yeah, so sports took over my life.
Yeah,
kept me out of trouble for a lot of years.
I think it does that for a lot of people, and so through high school you weren't a party guy really. Probably you're more of
I went to the parties, but it wasn't into the drugs and stuff because I was told you do drugs you can't play sports kind of thing from a young age, right? So managed to stay away from them for a long time through high school. Never touched them. Would drink at parties here and there, but if you weren't on a game night for hockey or something, right? So it did keep me out of trouble quite a bit.
Yeah, envious. I'm envious.
Yeah. So, but at a young age, I also knew. So I wanted to be an NHL hockey player, obviously. But at a young age, I knew I wasn't going to make it there. So I had 4 of my best friends that made it to the NHL.
Oh wow.
Kingston's a hockey town, as a lot of people know, right? So, I knew I wasn't going to make it. So my next thing was I was going to be a firefighter.
Okay.
And so put all my energy into that. So actually my OAC year of high school, I knew I wasn't going to do it, but halfway through, and I took a co-op at the local fire station in Joyceville.
Oh, cool.
So half of the day would be spent at the fire hall.
Right.
And I got credits for doing that.
So what originally attracted you to firefighting? Was it that it was a team sort of career?
Completely. Yeah. So I take, like, firefighting is the closest to hockey as you get. So you're at the fire hall with the boys, right? So you're in the dressing room or on the bus or whatever, hanging with the guys, right? And playing pranks and doing what you do and chatting and whatnot. And then you get a fire call, or you're going to the game, you're playing the game. It's all business, right? And all the joking stops, and it's all business, and you get it and get the job done, whatever it takes to get it done. And it's like going out on the ice, whatever it takes to help the hockey team, right?
Right.
So, and that's how I always was. I was your ultimate team guy, right?
Yeah.
So naturally, firefighting fit.
Cool. And so at what point did you get the job as a firefighter? I think it was early in life for you, right?
Well, yeah. So right as soon as I graduated high school,
mm-hmm.
Which I turned 19 that year, I was allowed to become a volunteer firefighter.
Okay.
So became a volunteer immediately as soon as I was done my co-op. And then a spot in dispatch opened up.
Okay.
Part-time. So I was able to be a volunteer firefighter and a part-time dispatcher, which I got to know all the trucks, all the full-time guys.
Right.
Then a full-time spot opened up in dispatch. So I took it, waiting for them to hire full-time.
Yeah.
And so I was a full-time dispatcher, volunteer firefighter for a year. And then at 23 years old, I became a full-time firefighter.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So when you started that job, was it everything that you had, dreamed it to be as a career?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And more, right? There's like the secrets that no one gets to know but you and I, right? Unless you become a firefighter, that how great a job it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always knew I'd be in that, emergency services, but there was always that option to be a police officer as well. Okay. But I never wanted to be the bad guy, right? I wanted to be the good guy all the time, and that's what firefighters are. We're always the good guy, right? So, especially this day and age, we picked the right profession in the last little while.
Definitely. I mean, it always makes me laugh. We go and kick people's doors down, chop up cars, do all, soak people's houses with water, destroy everything in there, and they're hugging us and thanking us for
us. It's unbelievable, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. But
a job like none other.
So rewarding all the time, right? Still love going to work. I hate when side story right now, as I'm off, I just had a little accident because I'm an amputee. It seems like little things happen to you. I spilled some coffee on my stump, which goes into my prosthetic leg. Yeah. And a whole pot of coffee, because I was in my wheelchair in the morning and I lifted it above me, right? And the bottom fell out of it right on my leg. So,
oh my God,
I'm actually supposed to be working today. And,
you are?
But I'm off because of this. And honestly, a lot of guys can be off work and be like, whatever, I'm off, I'm sick. That's what sick days are for. But for me, it's like, I want to be at work, right?
Yeah.
You know that feeling too, right? Like, it was hard for you at first and stuff too, right? So
for sure. I can relate to that a little bit.
Yeah. So anyways, off topic, but love the job, right? And I love being there and hate missing work. So,
well, hey, at least you're missing a day of work, but you're doing something good for the community and giving back with your story.
Sure. Yeah. And Chris, you notice I got a beard right now.
I know.
So we have to be clean shaven.
Right. So this is another benefit of your time off.
So if I'm not working, I'm not shaving. That's how it is. Yeah.
I should have known. Yeah. This episode of the Authentic Adversity podcast is brought to you and sponsored by Another Road Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center. Another Road offers a client-centered recovery program tailored to every individual's circumstances. Their focus is to create a supportive, healing environment rather than a rigid, rule-based institution. Their dedicated commitment upholds the individual values, respecting each person's desire for recovery. Another Road understands that every individual requires a unique and focused approach to their recovery. Certain modalities of treatment are introduced along with the tools necessary for each client. Located in a rural setting, their addiction treatment center for all genders provides the perfect setting for a transformative recovery experience and sense of belonging. The private residential treatment facility offers an unparalleled program with counselors that have in-depth knowledge based on varying years of experience in addiction. Another Road utilizes unique individual focused plans for recovery that address the complexities of drug addiction, alcoholism, and prescription medication misuse. They have a 65% success rate when clients follow their program. I know many people who have completed this program, and they have absolutely rave reviews. To learn more, visit anotherroad.ca. Okay, so in 2007, there was an incident that kind of changed the trajectory of your life as you knew it then. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So growing up on a farm and being a country boy, always skidooing, four-wheeling, dirt biking, all those things, right? So I was out snowmobiling, and it was late at night. We had been snowmobiling pretty much all day. And actually just before that, so we were going across Lobro Lake, which is north of Kingston here.
Okay.
And just before that, my best friend had sunk his snowmobile in Lobro Lake. Oh. And so down he was going, and I drove by and picked him up and got him to shore. And right. So we're like, let's call it a day, let's call it a night kind of thing. It was getting late. This is a sign that you should probably stop.
Yeah.
So we go back to his place. And of course, I'm like, I want to go out for one more rip, right?
Yeah.
And it's nice out. And so I go out and I grab a friend of ours that wanted to go with me. And so we're ripping across Lobro Lake, and it starts to snow pretty good. So like, when I say snow pretty good, it was almost like a blizzard out. And wow. If you've ever been in the middle of a lake in a blizzard, you can't see anything. You don't know where you are. You can get turned around so easily. And so I was following him because he knew the lake very well.
Okay.
And I kept trying to catch up with him and see his taillight, but it was just snowing so hard and the visibility was bad. So I kept losing his taillight. I'm like, if I lose his taillight out here, I could be out here all night trying to find shore or whatever. So scary. I lost his taillight. So I pinned it and started going really fast. And I was on a Mach 1, right? So we're probably doing 80 miles an hour trying to catch up to him.
Okay.
And which was completely stupid at the time, but I was just like, I'll catch up to him. No problem. I'm in the middle of the lake. What am I going to hit? Right.
Right.
Well, what am I going to hit? Literally go 80 miles an hour. I remember seeing the island and letting go of the handlebars and going, I just killed myself. And then the next thing I know, I sat up. I was like, oh my God, I'm alive. And I look around, I can't see my snowmobile, and I'm sitting on the other side of the island. So I'd hit the island, went over the handlebars, bounced off a tree, and threaded the needle. So this island was covered with trees.
Yeah.
I threaded the needle right up through these trees. If I had hit a tree, I'd have snapped in half, right?
You're kidding. Wow.
And landed in the snow. And so I looked down, and because I can feel some pain, but haven't gathered everything yet. And my leg was grossly deformed. So my femur was snapped right off.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die out here. And so it's eerily quiet. Like I couldn't hear anything.
Oh
I'm in the middle of the lake.
All alone.
All alone.
With a busted up femur. And at that point, you're a firefighter. You know how serious that is.
I know I could die, right?
Yeah.
And so it's minus 20 in a blizzard, sitting there going, what am I going to do? So this is no joke. I pull my cell phone out of my pocket, and we had those flip phones at the time, right?
Yeah.
And go to dial 911, and the phone dies.
Oh,
right?
My God.
So I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Right. So I'm like, what next? And I could see on the island I was on, there was a cottage. So this is my idea as a firefighter, right? I'm going to crawl to that cottage. I'm going to light it on fire, and people are going to see the fire, and they're going to kind of come get me. And that was because I had a lighter in my pocket. That was my idea. Right.
Wow.
So I started crawling, and I remember perfectly crawling, and I crawled, and I was going inch by inch, reaching down, pulling my leg, going with my body, pulling my leg because I could feel it separating.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, don't lose control here. Don't go into shock or I'll just die, right? So crawling inch by inch. And then I remember laying down, and I was just like, just die. Just get it over with. And that's what I was thinking to myself. And then I was like, no, I can't. My mom, my dad, like everyone's going to be so upset at me, right? And so it gave me some motivation, and I kept crawling again. And then I laid down again, and a couple minutes later, and I was like, just die. And then I was like, and this was funny, but I was like, oh, my friends will think I'm a pussy if I quit now, right?
Oh God!
Right? I'm like,
if
I'm
I
supposed to
die, they'll think I'm a pussy.
yeah, because I'm supposed to be this big tough guy that play, fighter in
Yeah.
hockey, and so but it motivated me, right? And I
Your
kept
pride,
going,
your ego motivates you to
right?
continue saving your own life. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm crawling, and then all of a sudden I hear a snowmobile coming back. So he had got to the other side and realized I wasn't with him, and he's looking for me, right? Thinking I'm lost out there.
Oh wow.
And so he's coming closer and closer and closer, and then I hear the snowmobile shut off, and you can tell like he found the snowmobile in pieces all over the lake, right?
Oh my God.
And then
what must
we
he have
start
been thinking.
right, and so we're yelling back and forth at each other, and he finally comes up and to me, he's like standing over top of me, and white as a ghost, and he's like, what do I do? Right? And I'm like, listen, grab me, drag me up on the back of your snowmobile, and drive me to shore, and I got to get to a hospital. Yeah. And he's like, okay. And I go, I'm gonna scream, I'm gonna yell, I'm gonna tell you to stop, don't stop. And so he's like, yeah, okay. So he gets the snowmobile positioned, he grabs me, he starts dragging me, and I'm like, don't stop, don't do it. And he stops. I go, I told you not to stop, right? And he's like, I'm sorry. And this is a very like really nice guy, like doesn't really know how to handle this kind of stuff like we do. And so the second time I'm like, you don't stop this time. You got to get me on the back of the snowmobile. So he got me on the back and drove me in. And I remember feeling every single bump on the way in, like my femur just going like this, right?
Yeah.
And luckily, like we got to shore, he had someone waiting for me. But this is another, like, this is just stuff adds to the story that just makes it even funnier. But there's a truck waiting for me. It's a jacked up Ford truck, like 4 feet off the ground. So these guys are trying to lift me into this truck, and every time they lift, my leg's coming apart, and I'm screaming, right? I'm like, this isn't working. So I had to take the truck down the road and get a car, and come back with a car so I could get down into the car. But of course, they show up with a monster truck to drive me in. These hillbillies, right? It's just So in hindsight, obviously I should have called an ambulance, right? But I'm just like, I can handle this myself. I'm a firefighter. Stupid, right? But because I could have been dying at that time. Anyways, I remember getting to the emergency ramp, and the girl that was driving the car goes in and comes out with a nurse, and the guy opens the door. He's like, okay, come on. And then he goes, oh shit. And he runs back out, and then like 6 nurses with a gurney come out, and they're like, they realize how serious it was, right?
Yeah.
So then, it's all chaos from there. You go in, and they're jabbing you with IVs and cutting your clothes off. And, before I knew it, they're like, you're going into surgery, and that was that. And then I woke up and looked down, and there was a big cast on my arm. Okay. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, like, what's wrong with my arm? I didn't have anything wrong with my arm. I was pulling myself along on the ground, pulling myself up. They're like, your tibia, or not tibia, fibula, your ulna was snapped right in half and sticking out. And
and you had no idea.
No idea the whole time.
Wow.
No idea at all, because my focus was on my leg, right?
Yeah.
And and like I was wearing jeans, and the jeans were so tight, like because it was swelling. The jeans actually kept everything together, right? But yeah, which was great. But I was swelling so fast that the seams on the jeans were ripping.
No
way. When I
Wow.
woke up, they had made these great big cuts to relieve the swelling, right?
Yeah.
Because I had compartment syndrome.
Okay.
And they said your tibia, fibula, your kneecap was broke off, shattered my femur. So they put it all back together with titanium. So I got titanium femur, kneecap, 33 pins and screws on my left side, and I've got a plate in my forearm. Holding that back together.
This is all on your left side.
All on my left side. So when I went over the handlebars, when I hit the island, I went over the handlebars of the sled and bounced off a tree that was right there on my left side of my body. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm thinking right away, am I going to lose my job? Can I ever do anything again? Right. And so from there, it was like, no, I'm keeping my job. I'm motivated. I'm going to do this. Right. So I literally had to learn how to walk all over again. Like one step, like one day was one step, and they're like, oh, congratulations, you did a step. And you'd sit back down and be like, what? Right. I want to walk. Right. And so learned a lot of patience.
Okay.
And just the process of learning how to walk again. And within, 4 months, I was walking and running and doing everything. And then
4 months.
And back on the job, like 6 months later. I went on light
That's
duties for a bit. Yeah. So
wow, that's
I crushed
wild.
it. So if they said to
Yeah,
walk for a minute on the treadmill, I'd walk for an hour. Like I was just so motivated to, you don't want to go too far, but you want to go as far as you can, right?
sorry, I was just gonna say, like, this sort of like positive mindset that you have and this like resilience, this like it does this are you is this all stuff you learned growing up on the farm, and then through sports you're probably being able to put all this stuff into practice with this as well, right?
Sure it is. Yeah. So
Yeah,
a lot of it would be sports, right? So I never missed a game at hockey. So like a lot of time I was injured. I had
yeah,
broken hand, broken whatever. I remember playing the championship football game in junior football with a broken hand, and I had a
yeah.
cast on it, and I had to get permission from my mom with the coach to play. And they're like, she's like,
Okay.
because I can't stop you, right? But and was out there tackling and being a donkey, right? So
Right.
I think it's all just like I don't like losing,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm not going to let an injury beat me. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And so, and I was younger at the time. I was 26. The first accident, I was 26. So I
Okay.
was in really good shape. I was still playing senior A hockey,
Mhm.
so it was easier to bounce back, right? Young,
Yeah.
in shape. And the doctor said, that's a lot of the reason you bounce back so quickly, and a lot of it obviously is mental, right? And so I was able to overcome it
Right.
by staying positive and staying just motivated to get back to work. I didn't want to lose my job. I worked so hard to be a firefighter, and
Yeah.
it's such a good job. I didn't want to lose it. Right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and along with this sort of speedy recovery and this sort of like will to survive and keep going and get back to regular duties, came another thing though with this with the what they were giving you for pain, right?
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad you went this way. So this was pre, um, you know, pandemic of narcotics and painkillers, right?
Right.
Doctors were prescribing them as much as you needed, they gave you, right?
Yeah.
So I actually came into the hospital hooked on oxys, right?
Right.
On Percocets first and then oxys. And
Okay.
they were prescribing them and I was taking them as I needed them, right? I was actually in pain and needed them. And then it became, I wasn't in pain anymore, but I needed them to function.
Still needed them. Yeah.
And it's something I kept pretty quiet because, I was embarrassed I that I got hooked on something, but I also had no clue what I was doing. Right? No one
Right.
warned me. No one told me anything about them. And then it got to the point where um, my doctor said, "Okay, you don't need these anymore,"
Okay.
because things were starting to happen with them, and they were starting to cut back on doctors giving them out.
Right.
So it went on for a couple of years of me
Okay.
taking them, and then I got all of a sudden cold turkey cut off. Obviously, you can't do that, right? And
No.
so I started buying them, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Which was, obviously I'm not proud of where I was at that time, and but I needed them, so I was doing it.
Well, and I think it's important to talk about that too, because it's not like you got into it trying to enjoy a party lifestyle. It was prescribed to you, and you didn't know what you didn't know about it, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I think that leads a lot of people down that road. And then when they're cut off, it's like, hey, what alternative do I have? I can't live like this. I'm gonna crawl out of my own skin if I don't get it.
Yeah.
And
I still need to
then
function. I still need to work, right? I need to,
right,
and I
and
don't
then
want people
dealing
to
with
know.
for sure. Well, that's what I was gonna say, and dealing with that also, hiding it and the kind of the shame that's associated with that sort of thing, especially around the fire hall.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like nobody is a fan at the fire hall of an addict.
Right. Right.
And so there's got to be that sort of weight on your shoulder of like, how do I hide this problem but still maintain my functionability?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So luckily, so I was looking for alternatives and uh, couldn't go to a methadone clinic in Kingston. I didn't want people to see me go in
Right.
there. So I ended up going out of town and found a methadone clinic and really great doctor.
Okay.
And he helped me and I got off of everything.
Really? How long
Yeah.
did it take you to come off of everything?
It took me 3 years, actually. It took me a
Yeah.
while because it's not easy. It's not easy. And I
No, it's
wanted to
not.
keep,
And people don't realize that what it's like
yeah,
coming off opiates and the amount of time and like it's not, you don't wean yourself off of this stuff in 2 weeks.
right.
It's
Right.
not like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads me kind of into my the next big event in my life. So that, believe it or not, I got back to completely doing everything I ever did after all those injuries. Like, you would have never have known I was injured. Playing hockey, playing baseball, you know, firefighting, no one would ever know when I had an injury. So I went, you know, so I did, you know, did what I set out to do. I got back to work and I got back to doing everything, and life was good. And then, so 2011, actually before that, so 3 years prior to that, so when I was just got healed up from the first accident there, I had met a girl at the gym that I went to high school with.
Okay.
And we hit it off, and we became boyfriend, girlfriend, and things escalated from there, and we moved in together and lived in a house out on Dog Lake, and life was good. And we opened a yoga studio together. She was a very well-known yoga instructor in Kingston.
Okay.
And so life was good. And she had demons from her past. She had been through a lot as a young woman. We'll just say bad things happened to her, and she went through addiction and was recovered. And so we had that in common, and life was good. So so we were living together. It was my birthday, believe it or not. I go out. She insisted I went out with my friends, was making sure I went out, but she didn't want to go out. So I was like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. So I went out with my friends.
Okay.
Went out all night, stayed at a friend's, came back in the morning and walked in the door, and she was laying on the couch. So I was like, oh, hey, what are you doing over there? Sleepy kind of thing. And did a couple things in the kitchen. And then she, you know, noticed that she wasn't waking up or whatever. So I was like, hey, what are you doing? Wake up. And I went over, and she had committed suicide. She was dead. And like, being a firefighter, like, I knew it was past fixing.
Yeah. The signs were there. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, I was in hysterics, right? And
I can imagine.
Phone 911, and the first people to show up are like firefighters that I know, and people are sharing it on the scanner, and other firefighters are showing up, and like it's just like out of the blue. Like, I knew that she had troubles in the past, but like, to do this and me not be able to see it coming was just like blew my mind, right?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I think that's something worth noting and mentioning, that like people who seemingly have it together and who are living a spiritual life in recovery, doing yoga and this sort of thing, like, the exterior doesn't always match the interior. And you know, I would imagine for her this was the case, and you know, that's tragic, and I'm so sorry to know about that. And I mean,
so and her
quite a
parents had
shame.
her parents have the same guilt, like just not being able to. She was talking to her mom that night, like, and she had no idea either, right? And so I carried a lot of guilt for a long time that it was my fault, because
for not seeing it coming.
You know, it makes me emotional still, right? But
of course,
they just should have saw it coming. Like, should have, but now that I know, you know, more about suicide and people that do it, they mean it. And they're, of course you didn't know, because that's how they get away with it, right?
We don't want you to see it coming, because then you'll stop it.
Yeah, of course, right? We'd stop it every time, no matter what, right? So now that I understand that part, and you know, the kicker was, I was still on methadone at the time, and that's what she did it with. And I know you don't know that, but I don't share that with a lot of people. And she knew it was. It was kept in a lockbox. It was all the stuff that was properly done. And it's like insult to injury, right? Like, why'd you do that to me? Like, it feels like I did it to you. You know?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, that's extra weight and guilt to an issue that's already like seemingly insurmountable. Like, to carry this stuff, you know, it's very that adds something, a big piece for you, right?
Right. So and I mean, ultimately it motivated me to, so I did go down off the rails a little bit for a while, and use some painkillers again, trying to mask it or hide it or whatever, right?
Right.
But ultimately got off everything again because I was like, you know, look what happened because of this stuff. I gotta get off it, right? So so went through the process again and got off it again, right? And so that's hit number 2 I took in life, and honestly, probably the worst hit. Like, physical injury is fixable, but like emotional injury is, as you know, man, it it's always there, right? It never goes away.
It never goes away. And I mean, it's something that, yeah, we can't outrun. We have to face on and actually deal with. And that could be one of the hardest things in life to do, is deal with those, the traumas that we've experienced and been a part of. And, not the actual thing happening, but like you said, the emotional piece of like what happened as a result of this, and what did this do to ourselves and people around us. As it's not
Right.
an easy thing to look at that stuff and to confront it and face it, and learn to cope with it, right?
Yeah. And there is more to this. There's so much more to this, and I'm going to get right into all of it too. Because so then her parents, because of what she did it with, like didn't want to talk to me, right? And I still don't talk to.
Yeah.
So that was a huge hit for me too, right? Because I was, she had nieces and nephews that I was really close with, and that whole side, they just dropped me, right? And they blamed me. They needed someone to blame, so they blamed me. I get that now, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
but
And
during
that's
the time,
fine.
it's got to be.
It was so hard, man. It was so hard. That's part of, not to make an excuse, but relapsing a little bit was, I just didn't want to handle any of it anymore, right?
For sure. And
I
the
felt like
people
I
that
had
were.
killed her, and then everyone's blaming me too at the same time. And then, so when I had my relapse, this is the other thing. And I think you know a little bit about this, but I went and bought some painkillers
Right.
and got arrested
Yeah.
on top of all of it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like the weight was just crushing me. And
Right.
now everyone
Yeah.
thinks I'm a druggie, including the whole fire department, because I had to tell them, because I
Right.
couldn't go to work because I was sitting in jail. Right.
Yeah.
So my life had just spiraled like out of control. I never actually thought I wanted to kill myself or anything, but I was
Mm-mm.
just like, how can I get any lower? Like, what? Why me? Why is this happening? And why does it
Yeah.
keep coming? Right. The
Right.
accident, and then all the stuff with Jen, it just kept coming. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I
So
ask you something just on that? All this stuff is going on, and the whole fire department knows the details of all of it, I would assume. What was the general, like, did you have people reaching out to support you during
oh, of
that, or
course.
did you? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's great. Okay.
My close buddies supported me the whole time. I told them what happened, so I was like, if you don't understand what I'm going through by hearing all this stuff, then I
Yeah.
don't need you around anyways, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's no one can handle this, right? And I'm trying, but you know, but
Yes, of
at the moment,
course.
failing, but I'll get a hold of it, right? So,
Hmm.
so no, my close friends kept, and then of course, fire departments are like any workplace with lots of employees. There was lots of people yapping, right?
Yeah.
And you can't stop that. There is anyways, even if you're a good guy and never do anything wrong, right?
You can't win in a fire department. No, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. That's human nature. Um, but I mean, it did. Obviously, it bothered my ego that my ego took that huge hit, because it wasn't only in the fire department. All of Kingston knew who I was and stuff, right? From
Right.
sports and all that stuff, and firefighting, and so they all knew too. So it was like,
Yeah.
what do people think of me, kind of thing. But I also knew, like, all it takes is time. Time heals everything, and a new event will come up, and
Right.
someone will screw up, and it'll be their time, and they'll forget about me. And that's
Yeah.
literally how it happens, right? Like,
Really.
you
Yeah.
just get pushed to the back after, the next big thing is whoever they
Yeah.
want to talk about next, right? So so I knew that would happen, so I just lied low, and worked on myself, and got myself back in, staying away from drugs, and staying clean, and staying on the program at the time to get back,
Right.
back sober.
And so you had kind of still that fighter mindset of that, like that same mindset you had pulling yourself through the snow with a busted up femur and a jacked up arm. You still had
Yeah,
that fight in you, and that drive to like come back to center.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't know how. It's hard to explain, because I just said, you know what, it's just another bump in the road. Let's just, like you said, come back to center and
Yeah.
regroup. And that's what I did. And life was good again. Time went by. Life was good. And we'll move on to, I guess, the last big incident.
Hmm.
So that's two, and now we're on to the third. So 2016 we moved to. And like I said, that's a little bit of time between what happened, and had healed a lot, and been, things have moved on.
And you feel
And
like physically, emotionally, mentally, you're back where you want to be.
that's right.
Feeling good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And out for a cruise on my motorcycle. So I grew up on dirt bikes and always had motorcycles and stuff. And so I'm out on my motorcycle out on a back road, North Shore Road, just north of Kingston.
Mhm.
And it's 4 PM, doing 60 clicks because it's a windy road. And a deer comes out of the ditch and runs right into the side of me. So I remember perfectly. I saw it in the corner of my eye, braced myself, boom, and hits the side of me. I get into a speed wobble and get control of the bike again, which is
Oh,
the thing people
wow.
don't realize. But there was a 90-degree turn in bend in the road,
Yeah.
and I was concentrating on the bike and wasn't paying attention. Got control, tried to turn as hard as I could. The back wheel hits the shoulder, and we all know like you can't turn on the
Yeah.
shoulder, right? And the bike
Yeah.
shoots out from under me. So I remember perfectly. I knew I was going down, and I said, "Don't hit my head! Don't hit my head!"
Okay.
Because being firefighters, you hit your head. Like there's
Sure.
survival is not great, right?
Yeah.
So I rode it out on my butt. So I like sat up and rode it out, and I bounced off the side of the road on my butt and slid into the ditch and into a bunch of rocks, like a little bit of a rock cut.
Yeah.
And I watched my leg snap right off at the knee.
You watched it.
Oh yeah, like it was
Oh,
right
my
in front of me, and I
goodness.
watched it happen.
Jeez.
And so the bike comes into the rock, boom, and lands on top of me.
Wow.
So I'm laying
Oh my
there,
God.
and I remember
Insult to injury
Yeah.
after like on everything, every one of your stories. It's
Yeah.
like it
and
can't get
honestly,
any
I
worse than
remember.
it does.
And Chris, I remember thinking, "Oh my God, I did it again!"
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
crashed again. I thought that in the ditch. Right away, I go right into firefighter mode. And I'm like, "Don't go
Yeah.
into shock. I got to get the bike off me. I got these things to do." So
Mm-hmm.
pretty heavy bike. And when they say when the chips are down, people get this extra strength. Like I'm a pretty strong
Yeah.
guy, but not this strong. I bench pressed the 650 pound, 700 pound bike right off me. And
Wow.
and I remember feeling it. The muffler was burning my hand. And I was throwing it off me. And
No way.
and then I looked down and I could see my leg was ripped off, holding on by skin. And
Okay.
I could see the ball of my ankle. So my foot was ripped off too, like turned the other way. And
Oh,
it was so white, like the white ball of your ankle, because it was exposed. And my
mhm.
tibia and fibia were sticking in the ground out of
Oh
my
my
yeah. So it was completely demolished. And I'm looking at it
Yeah.
going, "Oh my God, that's my leg."
And that's
And
your right leg.
my right leg, yeah.
Yeah. And just so and just to kind of and your other leg is full of titanium at that point.
Yeah,
Like
so
it's you know what I mean?
unfortunately, I couldn't have wrecked my left leg and got rid of that one and
Yeah,
kept my good
I
one.
know.
I kept my
Yeah,
bad leg, yeah.
I
So
know.
it is kind of funny, right? That's how it worked out. But
I mean, we can only laugh about it now, but
of course, right?
that
I
is
mean,
that it's wild.
yeah, this leg's like a machine now though, because it does twice the work. But anyways,
Yeah.
so if I can just make a phone call, I can maybe survive this. I can get someone coming. If I pass out, they might find me. I might live. So in my head, I was dying, and
Yeah.
so
Again.
I remember pulling my belt out, and I'm wearing the belt right now. It's a leather belt. I'm still wearing it 6 years later,
Oh wow.
and tourniqueted my leg. So I got it as
Okay.
tight as I could, and then I started pulling my phone out of my pocket, and I'm like shaking. And I remember I'm like, I've probably only got one shot at this, and I got to get it right, right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not dialing 911 because they transfer you too many times. I'm going to dial my dispatch, and they're going to come right away.
Okay.
So I phoned my fire dispatch, so Kingston Fire Dispatch,
Yeah.
and they picked it up like it was just the regular line. "Oh, hey, Mike, how's it going?" Right? "I'm
Okay.
fucking dying in the ditch. I need help!" Like just screaming, right? And
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
I'm on North Shore Road. So I'm like, before I had made the call, I'm like, place, right?
Yeah.
Tell them where I am first,
Yeah.
right? And then you can go from there in case you pass out.
Get them going.
Yeah.
Get them
So I'm
going
like,
to the
I'm on
for
North
sure.
Shore Road, just north of Lober Lake, and I'm dying. I just had a motorcycle accident. My legs ripped off, and I'm screaming. And the dispatcher, she kept me on the line the whole time. So I put it
Oh
on
wow.
speakerphone, and fire dispatch doesn't do that, right? So
Right.
she actually got a medal for what she did.
Yes, she should. That's amazing.
Gets me
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she was like, she kept me going, right? She kept me talking. She kept me focused on what was going on, which
Right.
helped, right? So
Absolutely.
I remember the guy that lived there was a guy that lived down the road. He must have heard me screaming.
Mhm.
And so he came down, and he just like white as a ghost. Same kind of look my buddy gave me out in the lake. He's like, what do I
Yeah.
do? I'm like, go get some more rope so I can tie this tourniquet tighter. So I'm like giving orders down in the ditch, right?
It's wild that you're
still
just
in control.
still in this firefighter
Yeah.
rescuer mode for yourself like that. That's
And I don't
that's
honestly,
truly heroic.
people ask how I did it though. And I don't know. I guess it's just in you or it's not,
It
right?
is, yeah.
And I just knew that I just had to do what I had to do to survive, right? And so I remember before that guy had got there, a car drove by and didn't see me down in the ditch. So I'd taken my helmet off after that. And I threw it up on the road and I was throwing bike parts up on the road. So the next car would see the stuff and maybe slow down and they'd hear me. And then the guy had heard me across the road and came down. And then finally a car did come along and it was this was like 10 minutes in maybe. And it was a little old lady. And she crawls down in the ditch, man, and puts her arms around me and just sat with me.
Oh no.
And it was like, I don't even know how she did it because everyone else that saw me, the old guy, whatever, wouldn't come near me because it was just like horrific, right? And so my mom actually hunted down this lady and found out who she was so we could thank her. And she was a school teacher
Oh wow.
of all things. And she was able to come down and like, I don't know, she's got guts, man, because she came down and right?
Sure. She went to mama bear mode.
Yeah.
Right? She treated you like you're like, and she gave you what you needed at that moment, right? Just to be embraced and held. And
you can tell how much it means to me that she did that because I just got emotional again, right? But it's like, how does someone do that, right? Like just a complete stranger came down and made a huge difference for me, right? Kept me fighting. It takes all kinds of people, like when your chips are down and you're dying. And what I didn't know is, so I got rushed to the hospital. It was like a 25-minute ambulance ride. I felt every bit of it. And, still thought I was dying. The chief from South Frontenac, where we were, was my old captain in Kingston. Okay. And so he rode in the ambulance with me. And so that gave me some more motivation. Like he talked me the whole way. And, and ironically, he was the first one that showed up at the suicide. So he's been there for a couple.
Just there for you when you need him.
So he was a big support too, because he had been there for that. So it made me just the little things that keep you going. So it's not all me, right? Like during these situations, it was the people involved that got me there too, right?
For sure. That's really important to highlight, I think, too, right? For it's a remarkable feats that you've overcome, but not without the help of other people who just genuinely were there for you and not expecting anything in return, not like they were just good people who were there for you, caring like we should all do for each other.
Yeah. And you know how many people just drive by stuff like that or like, I want nothing to do with that, right? Where they could make the difference in saving the person, right?
Yeah.
So, it could be a lesson for a lot of people to hear that and know that.
I think so.
Even if you're a stranger and you can't even help, all that lady did was come sit with me, right? Anyway, so the ride in the hospital, get to the hospital, they obviously take a good look at me, like scan me, do all X-rays and CAT scan and everything, and they're like pounding the painkillers into me. Here we go again, right?
Oh no!
And it's doing nothing. So my tolerance is through the roof from my past,
right?
And so the ambulance ride in, they can only give you so much in the ambulance, right? It did nothing. It did nothing. They kept phoning the doctor to say, "Can we give more?" And they didn't know why at the time. I'm sure they assumed why. Just a side note: both ambulance guys I've talked to since and thanked them. Great guys, and where they said they were like very worried that night too. So it was like,
I can imagine
it was tough for them too. They said because we all worked together. I'd seen them at different calls before and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I get to the hospital. And the doctor comes in, he's like, listen, we can't do anything more for you except for put you in a coma. And I remember saying, please put me in a coma. I remember begging for it. Yeah. I'm like, just do it. Because I had been in pain for so long at that point. Like, I knew my leg was ripped off, so I thought that was the pain. But I woke up 8 days later and I had a neck collar on and they said, you can't move for 30 days. And I was like, well, why? My leg, I get it. And they had reattached my leg, Chris. It was crazy.
Oh no!
But the stuff I didn't know was my neck was broken and my back was snapped in 3 spots. So they had put 2 12-inch rods in my back, and I've got a scar that's most of my back. And this is stuff and now it makes sense why I was in so much pain. They couldn't get on top of the pain, like
of course.
besides my leg, there were so many more injuries I didn't know of, broken ribs. And, so anyways, so I had to wear a collar for 3 months.
Yeah.
It healed on its own without surgery.
Mhm.
There were just fractures, 2 fractures.
Okay.
And then the rods stayed in my back for a while. I had them removed a year later.
Yeah.
Because of actually a little bit of a side story again. I was in the gym doing deadlifts a year later,
Okay. As
and
you
and
would.
and snapped 2 of the screws off in my back, and walked at a 90-degree angle for 2 weeks until I could get in for emergency surgery, and
God.
and then they removed them for me. So, and since then it's been pretty good. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so basically I thought my life was over at that point, right? My leg was ripped off. They'd sewed it back on. They tried it. It only lasted a couple days, and then they had decided it turned gray basically, and it was killing me. And
Okay.
then they amputated, right?
Wow.
And I remember that conversation perfectly. I knew the doctor was coming in to tell me it. I knew what was going on,
You
and
knew.
he actually said to me, he goes, "You know what I'm here for." And I said, "Oh
Oh,
yeah."
wow.
Like it was sucking the life out of me.
Yeah.
It, it was your body sends all its healing power to whatever's broken, right? Well,
Right.
it was sending everything to this leg, and this leg wasn't coming back, so it was killing me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So anyways, they amputated my leg. So I remember grieving for about an hour with my family,
Okay.
because it was tough, man. Like at that point, it was real. I always knew that they were going to amputate it. Like ever since I woke up out of a coma,
Yeah.
I knew it was going to go. I just had that feeling because it wasn't, it was that bad.
Yeah.
They basically rebuilt the entire thing, right?
Jeez.
And it had
Okay.
no skin on. It had no skin on it. It had one of those big halo contraptions on it,
Mhm.
right? And all these lines of blood running into it, and it was just a Frankenstein mess, right? So I always
Yeah.
knew it was going to go, but it's not real until they tell you they're doing it. And so, like, I cried for an hour with my family, and literally after that hour, I was like, "Dad, give me the iPad. I got to see what kind of legs I can
No
get."
way.
Yeah, I remember it.
You're
My dad's like, "What are
incredible,
you
man.
talking about?" I'm like, if they're taking it, I got to be able to walk because I got to be able to be a firefighter. I got to be able to play hockey. I got to be able to do all this stuff. So what's the best leg in the world, and how do I get it? And we literally looked
After
up
an
on the iPad
hour. An
after an hour. It
hour.
was
An
literally,
hour. You let yourself be down about it for 1 hour, and then you're on to the next. How do I get back to me? How do I come back to that center again? That
yeah,
is incredible. That is
yeah,
so, I mean, that it gives me so much hope to just to know your story, like, and to think that you could, like, you know, okay, I'm done grieving this, now on to the next, and like, let me regroup and learn how to live. Like,
yep.
life dealt me this hand, and it's my job to learn how to live with it.
And it's funny because like my family was like, what's he talking about, kind of thing, like too.
Yeah.
But then you could tell they're just like, yeah, okay, that's you, right? Here we go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember my dad and I looked up what's the best leg in the world, and it was the Autobach uh, Genim X3, which is
Okay.
what I have. I have 2 of them,
Right.
and I remember seeing it that day and being like, okay, I'm getting that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, got it amputated, went through a tremendous amount of pain trying to get out, like after they'd amputated the nerve pain and stuff. Got, took a few days. So
Yeah.
I was in ICU for a month
Okay.
because the main thing was my back had to heal, right? My
Mm-hmm.
neck and my back. So my leg was healing pretty good, and then my back had to heal. So after that, I moved to St. Mary's, which was, a recovery hospital. It's like Providence Care in Kingston now,
Yep.
and where they teach you how to basically get on with your life, with your new life, basically, right? Without
Right.
a leg. So how to do
Yeah.
things around the kitchen, how to do this, how to do that, and then, so I was moving and stuff by then, and had big plans of what I was going to do, and
Yeah.
met the prosthetist at that time, Marty Robinson, who's my guy now that builds my legs.
Okay.
And like right away, he knew I was going to be a pain in his ass because I wanted to put the leg on now, and I wanted to start
Yeah.
running tomorrow, and
Right.
that was that, right? So like all the exercises you have to do all these exercises to get ready for your prosthetic leg, and I was just like crushing them 24 hours a day right? So
Right.
my recovery was supposed to be about 4 months in the hospital, and I was in there for a month and a half. and they booted me out and said, get on with your life kind of thing. Right.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's the same old story. I just wanted, this is me now.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to change. I can't make my leg grow back. So what do I got to do to move on? And so the next thing was, can I be a firefighter still? Right. And my chief Armstrong, he's still my chief now. I remember him coming into the hospital. He was in the hospital, believe it or not. So when I went in that night, there was like 40 firefighters there.
I do believe it.
Yeah. All the chiefs, like everybody, as I wheeled by, like high-fiving me and stuff, like just saying they're here for me. Right. It makes me so emotional because they listened to me for 20 minutes on the phone, screaming, thinking I was dying. And they thought I was dying. So they all came down, basically said goodbye, maybe, or whatever. And meanwhile, like, obviously I survived it and here I am. But
little did they know.
The brotherhood, right? The brotherhood of the fire department, like, is just.
Yeah, that's just got to bring you to a place of like, just that overwhelming support and like you said, brotherhood just around you.
Chris, there was a fire truck. There was a fire truck at the hospital every single day I was in the hospital.
Wow.
One showed up. Like all the other shifts. That wasn't even my crew. Like all the other shifts. Every single day, a fire truck came to the hospital.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's that. That's. There's a lot of days in the hospital where you're laying there, you're counting the dots on the ceiling tiles, man.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So like it was needed to keep me sane, to keep me going.
And appreciated. Yeah.
And appreciated. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think they know how much it helped me. Right. They're just doing, going for a drive in the fire truck to see locker kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah. Right. So, and they immediately hung a helmet in my room, my fire helmet. Right. Which was like my motivation to keep going.
Something you look at every day. Right.
Yeah. So back to Chief Armstrong, he was there that night. And, I remember he came over and he said, Mike, don't worry about your job. It's still here for you. Before he knew anything, right? Before he knew they were amputating my leg, before my back, neck, before anybody knew any of that, he said that.
And put your mind at ease.
It did. And he was a man of his word, because when I came out of it and was walking on my leg and training and getting back in shape and all that stuff, we had a meeting and I said, listen, how can I keep my job? And he's like, listen, all you got to do is pass the physical test again, and your job's just how it was. It's sitting there waiting for you. Wow. And like, how's that for motivation, right? So like,
sure, crushing
the weights, every day training on my leg there. I was only supposed to wear my leg for like 2 hours a day at the start, and I was wearing it for like 8 hours. Right. And so like I was moving so fast. Marty he said it was the fastest he's ever seen someone go on a prosthetic leg, which is what I wanted to hear. Like that was my goal.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, not to toot my horn or anything. That was my goal. It was to be the best at being an amputee.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. I'm speeding up recovery. Basically, it's like training every day, training hard. I've got this test coming up to prove I can still be a firefighter. Right. So it's a physical test. So ended up doing the test, and all of my times were actually average times for two-legged normal firefighters. Yeah. So like none of my times were even near the bottom or near the cutoff. Wow. I crushed it. And so going back, like my crew had trained with me, and I'd done all the practice at the training tower. So all my guys put in work with me. Wow. And because they wanted to see me succeed, which was, a big part of it too. Like none of them were like, oh, he's got one leg, whatever. They're like,
no, it's great to have that support and a community around you to say like, you know what, we're in this with you, and we want you back on the trucks just as bad as you want to be back on the truck. So let's get through this together. Exactly.
And like I said, my chief was true to his word and was like, the job's yours if you pass. And I passed, and boom, I'm back. And the first ever above knee amputated full-time firefighter in Canada. And so looking further, at the same time, which is weird, but at the same time, a firefighter in Indiana had a motorcycle accident, above knee amputated, and had called me when I was in training, training back to get back to work, and wanted to pick my brain about how I was going to go about getting back, because he was a full-time firefighter. And
no way.
And so we had connected, but not really, not too much, because I really
Okay.
didn't know what to tell him, right? Because I'm going through it myself. I didn't know what to
Right,
do
right.
or what to tell him. So he had got back to work a couple months before me. He was the first to do it in the US.
But like literally your American counterpart. Like this is the same accident, the same job, and I believe it was the same leg.
Same leg. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has the same prosthetic leg as me.
Yeah.
We chat once in a while, and he actually came up
Cool.
and visited.
Oh yeah?
And yeah, and we did a tour of the fire halls and stuff and hung out a little
Cool.
bit. And then
Yeah.
since then, another guy in the US has done it.
Okay.
And one in Sweden that we both helped.
Oh really?
Yeah. So there's
Wow.
actually, we don't know if there's any more out there because no one else has came forward,
Okay.
but there's 4 of us now in the world, right? So it's
Wow.
pretty small club.
It's a
Uh,
small club, but I mean, hey, like that's a club that I mean, it's very unique, and people need to hear. I like any recovery from anything in life, right? You need to hear from the people who have been through it and the people that have been successful and are in the place that you're wanting to go. Like you
right.
need that motivation that yes, I can do it. It's been done before. I'm going to follow the word of these people who have walked that path and
Yep.
struggled to get to where I want to be. And just that piece of hope, knowing that it's possible to get back to, life.
That was all the guy from Sweden needed. He just needed to know that it could be done, and
Yeah,
that guy worked his butt off. I was just like, you just got to work harder than you've ever worked in your life, and things are
that's
gonna.
all.
And Chris, like things aren't easy. Okay, so like one of the guys brought it up the other day. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and he's like, actually, I don't even think of you as an amputee. I never even think about it anymore. Like I don't even.
Hmm.
You're just normal. Like he goes, I actually just forget most of the time. And then the other guys were chiming in, being like, yeah, like we never even think about it. Like you're just locker. You're not
Of
locker the
course.
amputee. You're not, and
You're
there's
not,
nothing that I don't do. Right. So, but all the things I do, Chris, are harder. Right.
of
So,
course.
but I'm not going
Yeah.
to tell anybody that. I'm not going to complain about it because I still have my job and I'm still alive and things are good. Right.
And you're
Um,
grateful, like you're a grateful person that is in you're living in positivity, and you're continuing to move forward and better yourself, and that's, I think that speaks to your, like your resilience and your positive mindset, moving through life at all times in your life, right? Like that people can lose sight of the fact that you're an amputee and just be like, no, no, it's just you. And
yeah.
that's, I mean, and which is, I mean, it's how I view you. Like I didn't know you before, but I never think about it like
Right.
that. I
And
just
neither
like,
does my wife, right? And
cause
so,
yeah, of course.
and that's where I want to go next with the story. So
Okay.
I got my job back, got my life back, but during that, I'm in the hospital. I'm at St. Mary's. I've been living in the hospital for like a month and a half at this point, right? So
Right.
I've got a beard bigger than this, like a beard. I've got long hair. I got no shirt on, no leg, sitting in a wheelchair, right? I'm wearing like
Hmm.
boxer Joe like jogging pants that are cut off with scissors on my stump side, right? Looking
Right.
like a complete like Lieutenant Dan, right? Sitting there just
Hmm.
like a gong show. I'm wheeling around because I'm bored because you're living in the
Right.
hospital, right? You're bored, and in between physio and stuff, you got to find something to do. So I'm wheeling around, and I find myself. I didn't know what section of the hospital I was in, but ended up in palliative care, and
Okay.
um, I ended up knowing someone that their mother was there.
Hmm.
So I had asked at the desk, and I start wheeling down, and I'm wheeling down, and I look into one room, and I jam on the brakes of the wheelchair because there's this nurse bent over the bed, and I'm like, that
Okay.
is the nicest butt I've ever seen,
Of
right? And
course.
and I squeal the tires on the wheelchair and totally get caught, right?
Yeah.
And so I go in. It was just pure luck. It ended up being the room of the person I was looking for.
Oh wow.
Okay,
Okay.
so I wheel in like I'm supposed to be there,
Yeah.
and start chatting up this nurse, and she's like a model, right? I'm like, are you
Hmm.
kidding me? And I'm looking like a dirtbag, like with no leg, like there's no hope for this guy, right? But I did pretty well with the ladies before. I'd been like this, so
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I still have that mindset, right? So I'm talking this girl up. Anyways, whatever, we talk, and I leave, and then I hit her up on Facebook and just say, nice to meet you, right?
Hmm.
And that was that. And so like
Okay.
6 months go by, and I put on the weight again. I'm walking on my leg. I'm looking like me again. I'm feeling great, you
Right.
know, back on the job, all this stuff. The confidence is back and stuff.
Yeah.
And I see her on Facebook or whatever. So we start chatting,
Hmm.
and we end up going on a date. That date And this is like the worst thing you can do on a date, Chris, as you know. I told her I was going to marry her. Right? Like,
Nice. Okay.
like she did. She thought I was just a freak show, right? She's like, what is wrong with this guy, right? And
Right.
totally bails on me, right? After the date. So long story short, Chris, I'm married to the woman,
Yeah.
to Angela, and never thought I was going to have kids. After what happened to me and stuff, we have a 2.5-year-old boy now. I have a stepdaughter, Kiana, who's 12. She has Down syndrome. She's like the light of the party wherever we go, as you know.
She
You've
really
met her.
is. Yeah.
My life completely changed for the better since my accident.
Wow.
And so like all the stuff that led me up to that accident got me to that accident. And that accident put me on another trajectory to where I am today. And like, I wouldn't change anything in my life right now. I'm a big believer now of like, it all happens for a reason. And this is where I am for because I kept from that first accident, the first thing that happened to me to Jen, to the third thing, the second accident, the drug addiction, all of that, it all put me to where I am today. Right. So, and, met my wife in the hospital. I never would have ran into her if I wasn't in the wheelchair from losing my leg, like all those things. Right. So like all that has to come together the way it did to be where I am. So big believer in that. And, it's like the icing on the cake, right? Like, it's like all that bad shit happened to get me to where I am. And like my son, like best thing that's ever happened to me, like by far. Right. And then Kiana and,
yeah, I mean, your whole family, just it's beautiful. I love seeing you guys together, and like, I mean, your wife is a phenomenal person, and just been like, it's been a pleasure to get to know her as well too. Like, and just seeing you guys operate as a family. You've had Joe and I come and stay at the house, and just like inviting us into your lives and showing us sort of like a glimpse of a day in the life of the Laughlins. It's like, it's really quite, as I said before, awe-inspiring. The adversities that have been thrown your way, and how you just keep overcoming and overcoming and overcoming, and to bring you to this place of complete peace and happiness after all of that. And like you said, one thing led to the next good thing, to the next good thing, and here you've got it all today, right?
And I still go by the motto, but I always have, and I always say there's always someone out there worse off than you are. So like, I find that people always feel sorry for themselves a lot lately, even with the smallest thing, and they're down and they're out, and they just feel like they'll never get over it, and it's poor me kind of attitude. And it's like, if you just think like what you're going through right now, someone is going through way worse, and coming and smiling about it and saying, life goes on. I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. I'm going to get through this, right? Time will heal all that kind of stuff. All the motivations you need, but like, that's my motivator all the time. It's just like someone's worse off. I know I'm a pretty fucked up guy, like physically, and I've got a few emotional things that I work on still, like, but there's someone out there that needs a lot more help than I do, and is way worse off, and they're still smiling, and they're still going on with life. So why can't I, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's motivation. That's what motivation is. And I mean, you do a lot of, you've shared your story, on different podcasts, and there's been news stories about you. I know that you're doing work in the schools, talking to kids, in motivating people in like public speaking. And like, I had hoped that, and I know we talked a little bit before the pandemic about kind of teaming up and
that'd be
doing
awesome.
some talks to, maybe, some other fire departments, or, youth groups and that sort of thing. I mean, I think your story and my story, they can kind of touch on a lot of different things that are really important for people to hear about, and it's through lived experience that you can motivate people today. I wanted to just maybe paint a picture for anyone listening. What is it like? Because I know your routine around the fire hall. You have two legs, so you have you have like a station leg, and then you have a go leg, right?
Yeah, which are the exact same leg. So, and which are the quote unquote best legs you can get in the world, right? So they're
Right.
waterproof, dirt proof, shock proof, all the
Right.
proofs, right? They're
Yeah.
pretty. Now that being said, I'm really hard on them, but I literally do everything I used to, right?
Yeah.
So I'm outside all day putting, like, doing yard work, cutting wood, like I do everything, right? Or I'm at
You
the
really
beach, or I'm
do.
swimming, or
Yeah.
so I'm pretty hard on these legs, but they are
Mhm.
really, really tough. So anyway, I have one already set up in my fire boot.
Mhm.
So I basically have a membrane that goes over my stump, and then it slides into a hardened shell that's on the leg. So I have a
Okay.
pin that holds it in. So basically, I come up to my fire boot, pull the pin, step out of the shell that's in my station wear,
Right.
step into my bunker gear leg, put the pin in, and pull my pants up. So we actually just did a drill with the deputy chief to see, because they wanted to make sure we're getting into the hall on time and all that stuff. Out of the 4 guys, I was the second one on the truck. So I mean,
No way.
yeah, it doesn't slow me down one bit,
That is
not one bit.
incredible, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the lucky thing is, so when I first came back on the job, I went right back in the back of the truck on the pump. So I was putting out fires, doing
Oh,
medicals.
wow.
Like they wanted to make sure that I could prove that I could be there, which I respect. I was not mad at one bit. I wanted to prove to everybody and to the
Right.
chief that he wasn't wrong in trusting me with this, right?
Yeah, they
And
weren't putting you on a ladder truck and saying, like, go to an outlying hall and just kind of
do
ride the
nothing.
days out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They wanted you to work, which
I was
is, yeah,
downtown Brock.
very
Well,
respectful.
actually, Chris, I was at Palace Road, which is kind of it's a 4-man station. There's a pump running out of it. They moved me to the big house where all the action is, the busiest station, when I
Right.
came back for that reason, because they were
Yeah.
throwing me into the fire. And like I said, I respect that. I wanted to prove it. And I'm the first one in Canada, so there was probably some people saying, "What are you doing?" to the fire chief, right? Like,
Some
why,
skeptics.
right?
Yeah.
This could come back and bite you in the butt. But I think, with him knowing who I was and stuff, that I wasn't going to do that to them. Like, the fire department means a lot to me, and the job means a lot to me. And so, anyways, yeah. Back to your original question, the way I get into my fire gear is very quick.
Yeah.
And so I have the 2 legs. So then I also have a running blade. So everyone's seen them on the Paralympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have one of those so that I could do some running, or you can even wear it around. There's like a springy leg. And then
Yeah. Right.
I'm in the midst of getting a sport leg, which is going to be
Oh, cool.
hopefully for work.
Okay.
It's hopefully going to hold more of a load, and it's got a big Fox shock in it. It's really
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
I'll have to
That's
show you
very
more about it
cool.
at some time. But
Yeah, definitely.
an amputee in the U.S. has designed it, and he's a Paralympic snowboarder.
Oh, cool.
Was a motocross guy, and
Right.
so a guy that knows it is building it, knows
Yeah.
what we go through, and knows what we need. Because there's certain things I can't do with the legs still,
Mm-hmm.
like skate or ski.
Okay.
And this one that this guy's built, you can do both.
Wow.
So I can do
That's
pretty much everything
incredible.
else, Chris.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, you really can. And you actually do everything else. Like, I mean, you're back on your motorcycle, right? You're
yeah,
riding,
yeah.
you
Not
riding.
my mom doesn't want to hear that, but yeah.
No, I know. But I mean, and I get that. But I mean, it just speaks to your, your kind of like that coming back to center that I talked about before, and the strength that you've been able to like muster out of
it, it,
all situations, and just like, no, this is what I love doing, and I'm not going to stop doing the thing that I love doing, and really, like, nothing slows you down.
yeah, and I'm not gonna pretend to be some kind of tough guy. Like, when I first got back on a motorcycle, I was nervous. I
Mm-hmm.
had doubts, right? Like, it wasn't easy because I had almost killed myself on one, right?
Yeah.
And then, but it all came back to, like, it was an accident. I didn't do anything
Right.
wrong. I was out for a drive and I got hit by a deer. It wasn't, I wasn't driving like a jackass trying to do wheelies or anything like that, right? So
Right.
accidents happen. We see it all the time. That's our profession, is cleaning up accidents, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's that made it easier for me, but it wasn't easy getting back, Chris. It wasn't like I was just like, oh yeah, whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure it was a process like everything else, but
Yeah. But I was
yeah,
able to
I
do
get
it. Yeah.
yeah, you're able to do it, and able to still enjoy absolutely every aspect of your life, which my hat goes off to you, man. Like, it's you're a remarkable person. You've been a great friend. I mean, I know you've already given some words of wisdom, but is there anything that you would tell a listener that may be going through something that you haven't already said?
Yes.
That a little piece of hope.
just anything you're going through in life, you are able to overcome it. It's all right here. And, no matter like physical challenges, mental challenges, like physical ones are even easier because, I shouldn't say it's easy, but it is because your head's still there and you can make yourself push past anything, right?
Yeah.
Physical limits can be pushed past. Mental ones take more time and take more work. But, I've been there too, and I still am there. I'm always going to have these little things to deal with. But if you put in the work, you can get past that too. And so guys like you and me are around. And if people need to talk to someone like you or me to just get some motivation or some advice, we're here, right? And don't be afraid to lean on someone like that's been through it and is actively working on it.
That's it. That's so important, right? Like, develop a relationship and a community around whatever obstacle that you may have, because like you said, people have been through it before, and there'll be people that go through it after you, and you'll be that person to help the next person through. It takes a community. So
absolutely,
man, I really appreciate that. Lastly, where can people find you online?
So mostly Instagram at Firefighter Amp.
Okay.
And then I'm on Facebook, Michael D N Laughlin.
All right, man. Well, listen, like I've said a number of times, your story is incredible. I'm fascinated by you as a person, you as a firefighter, you as a leader and a motivator and a teacher to all of us. You just, our friendship has brought me so much, and I really look forward to the next time we actually get to sit down in person. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so open and honest about all the things that you've gone through. I know it will help so many people out there who listen. So thanks again, man.
Well, you're a big
I love you.
You're a big inspiration to me, buddy, and I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
Okay, brother.